If you haven't noticed, I'm a bit of an evangelist for web components. I think they are the future. But before we get into the future, we need to know how we got here and why. So, this is the start of a workshop I gave recently. You'll see a QR code. If you scan that QR code at any time, you'll get taken to a workshop in which you can learn more about a tooling called OpenWC and how to build your own web components. But this is a little bit of history as to how we got there and why I'm so crazy about them. So, enjoy. So, a little bit about me. I am a full stack developer, or a unicorn, if you will. I graduated from Penn State in 2006 and then again in 2015, doing master's work on the spread of innovation at the institution based on some tools and open source projects that I had been working on. So I've been a 100% open source developer since 2008. I've released multiple millions of lines of code as a result, primarily into PHP and JavaScript based ecosystems. This is in part why I have front end and back end skills and can do full stack development. The first half of my career was in PHP, more server driven tech, and the second half is entirely in front end web development. So I've worked at Penn State and written web for 15 plus years at this point, and I teach a programming course called Programming for the Web, or FTW. As I joke in class, it's divs. So I teach you divs, and then I teach you how to put divs inside of divs, and then divs in those divs. And don't you forget the div and a div and a div and a div, because there's just divs all over the place, as there have been for the entire history of the web until recently. So to know what a div is, you need to know what the DOM is, as we throw words around. So div is short for divider. It's basically just taking what you see on a web page and breaking things out into little boxes. So we put a tag in another tag, and we get this tree, or document object model. It's the HTML, which is what this standard is, all structured together, how it stacks nicely, so that when we have HTML for structure, CSS, or cascading style sheets for the way things look, and JavaScript for interactivity, that we end up getting the modern web that we all know and use every day without thinking about it. In fact, you can see this unique to this series of languages, unlike other types of programming languages, by going to any browser, including what you're watching this on, right-clicking in most places, like a blank space, and hitting inspect. If you do that, you'll end up seeing the console and the document object model and everything that makes up what you're seeing. So let's go back in time a bit before we over-dived the web. So in 1996, this is when I got started writing HTML, and I did not make this site. However, it's an awesome artifact of what the web used to be. And so the Space Jam website still works because it's written in HTML. In fact, you can right-click and you can see all of the fun comments that are in there, such as, this is where we put our ads, don't touch this area, right? The comments back and forth between the development team and marketing, apparently. And this is also an interesting artifact because I believe this is the very first web property created to market a major motion picture. So this showed that when we're getting to the mid 90s, people are taking the web seriously. This is something worth investing resources in. But it's written in HTML, and so it still works today, which is awesome. In the year 2000, I ended up making this website. So this is a website for the school that I went to. And wouldn't you know, in the year 2000, I wrote this using HTML, a standard that your browser is playing right now if you're using Chrome, Safari, Firefox, or anything else. And it still works. So the popularity of the web and design, right, even me in primitive design work, that is a significant improvement in 4 years of the web, right? We're getting to these things that sort of look like skeuomorphs and look like interfaces that we might have in the real world, not just like glittery stars and clicking on planets. So by 2002, web popularity explodes, Flash being the thing that starts to really make the web interactive. Now, it's not that JavaScript doesn't exist, but people don't use it in the way that we think of today. So properties like Newgrounds, Zombocom, and Homestar Runner for sure come out and explode the popularity and creativity of the web, thanks to Macromedia Flash, which was a way of kind of authoring interactions, right? So I'd put Homestar Runner there, and then if I want the bees to flutter, I could script the animation for that. But then I could save that to a format, an SWF file, which could play on the web. And so people would find it in indexes via Google search and then get this awesome interactive thing. So skipping forward a little bit from there, 2005, a video platform some of you might know comes out, and Flash makes this possible because Flash gives us the ability to do this interactivity online in a portable document format that people get to via HTML. But Flash isn't a standard. It's awesome as a vehicle for generating a ton of popularity of web interactivity and web content. But Google just bought this, we're talking 2005, just bought this property that's entire premise is built on something that is non-standard. This is something they think they can make a lot of money off of, and obviously do. So Google buys YouTube, and in 2006 invests heavily in the HTML standard to protect this investment. Now, I'm kind of drawing this conclusion, but these things are happening around the same time, okay? And part of that investment is in the video tag, right? In this case, Google has a direct inherent interest in HTML having a video tag. The reason that Flash is the thing delivering video is we're talking there's no video tag. There's no ability for the web to have video, right? So obviously a lot of server work, streaming technologies, that stuff had to advance as well. But we still need a way to get it to people when they're searching, at this point, not even on phones. We're talking searching on stationary desktops primarily. Some people had nice enough laptops so they could do half decent web work. But we're not in responsive design or anything. So in 2008, Google releases Chrome, right? They're investing in web standards. They're investing then in search. They're investing in the browser. And all of these things become a connected ecosystem that they have an invested interest in. And so unfortunately, unlike that old website that I made, and unlike that marketing website for a movie, things made at this era don't work because they weren't standard. They weren't the HTML standard. And so it was just like this awesome thing that Macromedia and then Adobe propped up for a while. Now, you can get plugins to play these. Don't worry. I highly recommend going back and playing Homestar Runner stuff. It's amazing content. But it's not a standard. It needed a third-party plugin to work. Now, around these, again, similar swirling times, in 2004, people are getting more into interactivity and engagement on the web. How do we do more with the web than just content and silly GeoCities types of sites that are glittery? So we get Facebook, we get Twitter around these times, trying to make the web more social. Others start to invest in the other aspects of the web at this time as a result. So Google, with investment in the web platform via HTML, we need the video tag for interactivity. Facebook, we need to invest in a development framework. People need to be able to get push notifications. They need a way that we can orchestrate this as a team so that we can all use this engaging interactive ecosystem and manage its development in JavaScript. Twitter, while having JavaScript in there as well, invests in the design aspect via design frameworks because we need to consistently present these interfaces in a way that's visually appealing, easy to understand, and that way, hopefully, more people use it, we generate more revenue, yada, yada, yada. So this is a direct investment in JavaScript as a standard for enhanced interactivity and CSS for investment in design and the way things look, right? So we have structural, we have interactivity, we have design work, all being invested in this mid to early 2000s. So Facebook makes React to orchestrate JavaScript at scale in a modular component manner so that we think of parts of the page as being things like cards and dialog boxes, but that developers actually have a way of managing those things as cards and as dialog boxes instead of div, 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 div. Now, there's still a lot of divs in there, but other ecosystems start to pop up as well, right? So React is not alone in this. There's Vue.js, which is a component library. There's Angular, which is popular as a development framework from Google, and it's their way of doing modular component-based development. Twitter makes Bootstrap to organize the design chaos of a design system that helps manage the look and feel at scale. And other ones also exist, right? So we get things like Tailwind. We have Material from Google. There's many others. So we have design and interactivity that give us solutions, but reusability becomes a nightmare. None of these things will mesh nicely together. So we end up with Google searches that involve React plus Material, or React plus Tailwind, or Bootstrap for React, or Angular for Bootstrap, or Angular for Material, or Tailwind for Angular, right? We end up with these combinations in which you've got design chaos constrained and you've got development chaos constrained. But project to project, based on these things not overlapping, you may or may not actually be able to repurpose your own work. You've learned a lot of lessons from it. You constrained the chaos. You were able to work in a large team. That's awesome. But reusability beyond those ecosystems are still locked to the ecosystems. So around 2011, as Wikipedia is saying here, the HTML-based standard known as web components is proposed by a Google engineer. Right, so this is very first proposal. There's a video, you can go find it, in which you're talking about, well, what if we had like X hyphen and then any tag, and that was a interpretation of HTML, it was representative of HTML, and if we fed this definition via a JavaScript standard, we could style this thing that you're thinking of as a card, but actually it's a new HTML tag. Now, the standard doesn't require you to have an X in it, but at times you'll see X as the first tag, in part because of where these things started. So I said I've worked at Penn State for 15 plus years, and here's the landscape as far as JavaScript goes over that time as I see it. It's 2007. There's something in JavaScript. It's so hot right now. We should all use it. It's 2009. That thing, not hot anymore. Let's use this new thing. It's 2 years, 3 years later. That thing, not hot anymore. Oh, it's 2 years later. That thing, not hot anymore. Oh, it's 1 year later. Oh, that thing, not hot anymore. That thing, not hot anymore. That thing, not hot anymore. It just keeps repeating because we're trying to orchestrate the chaos and work better together in teams without a standard way of doing that. So I would postulate this is the JavaScript ecosystem, the next 15 years without something for managing and orchestrating this chaos so that we can actually get our work done efficiently and deliver it in a manner that goes more pervasively than what we've had access to before. And so obviously, this is about web components. So how is web components different? I did mention a second ago that they are JavaScript based. Why is this going to solve this problem, or is honestly starting to solve this problem as we see now? So this is a standard built out of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's all three of those combined to allow you to make a new HTML-based tag. In this case, custom hyphen element. If you are a developer and you make your own new tags, they have to have a hyphen in them. That's part of the rule, so that you can be differentiated from platform primitives, things that we would expect to see, paragraph tags, bold, etc. So think of this as a way of building web pages that's more like Legos, right? If we think of those divs as allowing us to stack stuff together and nest stuff and put our card next to a card, imagine instead of divitis and a zillion divs for that card and an interpretive zillion divs for this card, with CSS coming down to cascade and make that div structure look like a card. Imagine we were able to create a new boundary called my-card, and that the internals of my-card had all the styling it required, had all of the divs required for it, and had some mild ability to map attributes on that HTML to wire up and look like a card in question, right? With the label where we want it. This is what web components are giving us, so that then when we go and put it in the page, it's my card, my card, my card, my card. It's not div structure, div structure, div structure, div structure. So let's define what a web component is and why we often say use the platform. So web components is a meta specification. It works across all browsers as of about 2018 or newer. It's made up of HTML template tag. It's a new tag, well, not new anymore, but a tag that's template, plus custom element specification. As I mentioned before, that would be like my-button. Shadow DOM, which is optional, but is for scoping the element via CSS and selection via JavaScript, and ES modules, which is a modular way of shipping JavaScript so that code can reference code in a standard low-level platform way. That allows us to reuse that code over and over again. So for example, our team made a video player. And so we didn't make a video player for React that is looking like Bootstrap, or we didn't make a bunch of divs that we then apply global scope jQuery to interpret as the video player. We actually make a tag called video-player. It's designed a certain way. It functions a certain way. It has searchable transcripts. You can click and jump to that point in the transcript file, and it jumps to that point in the video. Lots of buttons, interactivity, lots of layer on top of the video tag, right? But we need to solve the problem of making that work anywhere and plug into other design libraries and frameworks. Now, if we inspect, we right click and inspect the video player, we'll see it's actually a video-player. We'll see this nice little shadow root boundary, and then we'll see it's made up of other web components. So it's another concept of this. You can stack components in other components. The shadow DOM allows for scoped CSS in JavaScript. If you've written CSS for a long time, it is stupid how easy this makes your selectors. If you're brand new and this is where you're picking up is getting into web development with web components, you got to miss out on a whole ton of selectors, this being a CSS selector, that would look like P space div space dot class name, or class name hyphen block hyphen red hyphen underscore blue, like all kinds of naming conventions just to make sure you target the correct thing. This takes off the table. We also get a new CSS selector, in this case host, which is the default styling applied to the tag itself. This forces it to work the same everywhere and look the same everywhere. So the shadow root, while being something you don't have to leverage, it does make it so that I guarantee this video player looks and works the same no matter the application context it's dropped into. That's a very important connotation that was not there in the rest of development leading up to web components. So if we look at the way that we ship this, it is JavaScript based. So we have a new way of referencing JavaScript. In this case, script src is pointing somewhere, type equals module. And what that means is it then steps through all of the other potential imports and then steps through those and steps through those and steps through those until we get all the files taken into account, and then the chain completes, and then it executes the code. It's an important distinction because we never used to have that. We never used to be able to reference code. By never, I mean prior to 2015 when this standard emerged. So by having that standard, we can now ship these modular pieces. And one thing that naturally fits nicely in this ecosystem is web components. You can ship other things via this standard for sure. So looking at the basis of a web component file, and now everyone will ship web components slightly differently. This is just kind of the conventions our team has landed on, is we reference the other things right before it. Now, personally, I try to reference my classes and methods and other things I'm pulling in, and then other web components. So we'll see here we have our own base class. In this case, we build things with a connotation of color, accessible color in that regard, so that we can have standard levels of blue, red, green, etc. So most things will look sort of something like this, right? We have class-based JavaScript. So I can say there's a class, it's video player. It extends from something else. And if I'm building on top of things that are built on top of HTML element, which is the low-level browser standard. So every browser vendor has agreed upon HTML element is a base class that everything extends from. It's effectively treated like it's an HTML element. So think of, in this case, simple colors, which is extending from lit element, and lit element is adding conventions on top of that low-level standard. This is why all of these things work across everywhere. So then we tend to have styling that's applied just to what we're working with. We have a render method of some kind, and in this case, we're conditionally rendering parts of what the inside of that tag is. And we're rendering divs, so like there's still divs, there's still structure, but we're also rendering other web components. So you get the accountability of being able to go back and fix, and I can go, oh, there's a bug. I can trace up, oh, it's actually in Ali Media Player. And now I know what my reference file to go and debug is. This has dramatically simplified the time for us to ship and fix functionality. Then lastly, things are defined by the browser. In this case, we have window.customelements.define, and there's some binding of the tag name in question to the video player class. So then imagine the browser goes and loads, you load this definition, and then when the browser sees video-player, it effectively runs through this class-based definition. This turns everyone into a potential W3C spec contributor. You are that low in the spec at times if you're working with vanilla JavaScript. This is why people build on top of this via things like Lit, which is a very slim library that helps just with some of the interactivity and things that you might expect in building something if you've worked with other frameworks and libraries. So to recap, web components are made of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They let you make new valid HTML tags that work anywhere. They work in every browser, they work in every framework, and existing content management systems and static pages and code pens, literally anywhere, because it's on the web. We're at a very low level. A file tends to, but does not have to, supply the definition for that tag. And this solves adding complex functionality. In short, as I would tend to talk about them, like today, they are revolutionary. And then you got to have some meme. You got to have like some, like, obviously it's a revolution. Viva la revolution. No. So when we go to our next project, we have a website and someone says, oh, I love your video player. We don't think about the context of their system. In this case, I believe this is an Omeka-based site. That thought never crosses my mind. What crosses my mind is if I can reference my video player on your site, then you can use my video player. If I can reference your video player in my content management system, even though it's Drupal, I literally don't care. It takes all of those considerations off the table. All of them. So I can get maximal reuse of that asset, no matter the other context of design decisions that were made in building and shipping that system. Right? So, and then lastly, we have WordPress there. So some more examples, because this is not unique to Penn State, right? Like I didn't invent this standard. Obviously, lots of people have been working on this a long time. I'm just telling you about it. So where I got really inspired to work on this more and start building literally everything this way is I went to a conference at BYU, Brigham Young University, and webcomponents.byu.edu was something that came up in conversation. It wasn't even a presentation there. I had just been mentioning, oh, I'm looking into this thing, web components. And they're like, oh, no, we've been using that for a couple of years. And it's like, oh, can I see it? So what they've done is effectively unified their marketing and branding strategy around this. So if you drop a BYU-header tag into any web property and you reference the definition for their components and the way they should be styled, you look like the university. And that might not sound like a big deal. Like, obviously, hey, we need to look like a unified brand. But the platform decisions, whether you have things on that site in material, if the design system was in Bootstrap, it's going to be different in the old web based on how you would have to scope and craft these components so that someone copies and pastes that on there. It also allows for retroactive update with how they're doing it, right? So these definitions are shipped via content delivery network. So all the components come and show up on that end product, whether it's Drupal, whether it's static, whether it's a React app, whether it's Vue.js, Svelte, doesn't matter anymore. Then they can update this definition. So let's say that the color shifted slightly in about 10 years for whatever reason, or that the logo in this case shifted slightly. These things could be updated after the fact for brand uniformity without thinking about where it's deployed. YouTube, as I mentioned, with video player investment, it would make sense that in around 2018, they rolled out web components long before anyone else was, because Google was heavily invested in this web standard for standardizing their own properties. EA Games is another example. Well, we've got EA Gamebox, EA Container. If I want to put this if I want to put box art for Apex Legends on some other web property, why does it matter that the web property was made in Vue and this other property was made in React? And then we have to re-architect this low level. No, web components cuts through that. Xfinity Comcast, we see the X in there, but it's XC. right? For XC-header, as far as getting that header across all of their ecosystem of tools. So whether it's small and fun, like in our case, we make these RPG characters that you put in a seed value, and the seed value gives you a unique character that's dressed in a different way with thousands of combinations, or a flair flair for marketing and dramatic in a marketing site. So if you go to HAXTheWeb, which is the primary hub that I talk about things through, you might see this little blinking thing that goes like, and it switches from hacks to like anything and tells you the things you can easily create. Well, that's actually a future terminal text tag. If you want to make things do that effect, you just feed it what the thing is, what the text should be, and that it should glitch, and it'll do that. Or you could build a full website. In this case, this is Office of Digital Learning at Penn State and College of Eberly, or Eberly College of Science. Sorry, said it backwards. The entire site is made out of web components. Or you could build a block editor out of it like we have. So this is the H-A-X tag, which knows how to edit other web components. Can be dropped into any system and edit blobs of HTML and save back blobs of HTML. Or you could put that editor that you made into a full content management system. In this case, shown is the HackCMS-site-builder tag. It operates off of a static site.json file in a certain schema. And so the entire authoring and editorial experience on the front end is web components, thousands, tens of thousands of them, orchestrated and working together, that work anywhere, whose contents save and can be used and repurposed and remixed anywhere, because as long as you get that definition to that highly semantic value, you get the material. We're no longer locking people into our own content management experience. You can build any application with web components. So what is HAXTheWeb? As I mentioned, HAX.psu.edu. HAX is short for Headless Authoring Experience. It's made up of 800 plus web components in our ecosystem, all of which are open source, all of which future derivatives will be open source because of my awesome arrangement here where I get to open source everything we're doing. The editor reads and writes HTML. And wouldn't you know that web components are HTML? So we have a very slim standard that when the editor detects that, it knows how to build a form. You edit that form's values, which the form values are web components. So you edit the form values, and then it modifies the properties and attributes on that HTML tag. You hit save, and someone that doesn't know what HTML is just did it. Right? So one of the goals of this project is to empower users to write complex HTML that's highly semantic, like I would have written it, without ever realizing that's what they're doing. It should be a gorgeous, fluid, easy to use, highly portable, works anywhere, and the content doesn't lock you in type of an experience. And you shouldn't have to know what any of the last, however long this video is. So what any of those words mean. You should be empowered the same as me or you, highly technical person watching this. Another goal is to remix, deploy, edit, migrate web and web content and content management systems without technical skills. There is a huge disconnect in I get website up. It was easy experience. How do we go somewhere else in 5 years? You don't. You burn it down, you build another one, you pay someone to build this one. No, we don't do things like that anymore. And you pay, and you just keep paying over and over again for content that doesn't need to be maintained in that way. This dramatically bends development curves, and when development curves bend, cost curves bend as well. So if you want to learn more about HAX, about our many web components that are out on NPM, or what the content management system, web authoring experience is and what it looks like, I encourage you to go to HAX.psu.edu, because we have a very bright future ahead, given the history of awesome things that we're able to build on top of.